Hello again for a non-ha-ha Lamentations of the Flame Princess video. First, a little housekeeping before we get into the thing. Trying out some new things, using a different green screen, see how that works. Not that it matters since we're not putting anything there for these kind of videos anyway. Trying a little different lighting, maybe learning some lessons that can be applied to the scripted stuff. And I've got a teleprompter. I was hoping it would fix on right in front of the camera, but it doesn't. So, here's me looking at the camera, and there's me looking at the teleprompter. Hopefully that's not a big difference for you, but if it is, that's what's going on. I got my little remote control for the flow of the text. I've been practicing. It's the difference between me reading and me just talking is going to be obvious, I think, but that's what's going on. So, today's video actually is a response to one of the comments on the last Talking Head video I did, where I talked about everything. And I thought that the response, that the comment raised important issues, and I think it deserved a response that was substantial, and at the same time I thought it would be valuable for the people to actually know what was going on in these situations and what the thinking is, rather than just me replying to a comment where a minimum of people are going to see that. So what I'm going to do here is hopefully I know how to put the link to the previous video. So maybe you could kick back for an hour and watch that. And then I'm going to read off the teleprompter the comment that's prompting this video, and then I will go back to not reading and speaking directly to the people, since scripting the response is, I think it's better if I just talk to you rather than drone onto you. So hopefully, a bit tired, but hopefully I can keep up the energy and make this maximally engaging. Might be a bit much, but at least as engaging as it possibly can be, with a camera pointed at a guy's head and blah blah blah. YouTube! Okay, so the comment was left by someone, I would pronounce it Gwynplaine. Probably not the person's real name. But let me read the comment. I think one of the problems isn't that you don't care about conformity/consensus. It's that you often actively try to attack and lash out against it with shock appeal. I understand you think of it as some kind of artistic principle, but you aren't trying to live a bohemian lifestyle for the sake of art, where you burn manuscripts because you can't afford heating. It's a business. Lashing out just perpetuates your tainted image and makes them ignore you. I have seen people reacting to new releases basically saying, oh look, the LotFP guy is being a doofus again, and then they move on. The shtick has gotten old, and bad press in this case is bad press. The attacks just come off as showing people you kind of do care about what others think. You're just thinking about what they don't like. I don't care about what most people think, so I just do me, and I've had minor successes I'm happy with. An idea you won't entertain is to produce a gateway mass appeal product, a special classic fantasy version of the player core book, text the same, but with new art and cover by, I assume he means Errol Otis, or other old school artists in their style without any vor/gore. It would be reported on widely and bought widely. People love the system. It's the best available, but one can't always attract new players when they crack open a book and there's a beast ripping out of a swollen woman's vagina. I'm not being puritanical, I'm being sensible and thinking about new players, old players, and press first and foremost. You can't exist in a world, I assume this person meant can't. It was a typo where they say you can, but you can't exist in a world without being a part of it. You certainly should keep up with the wider community. You'd see what and who is praised by people you trust and those you don't. You'd see what other companies are doing to promote themselves. You would also continue to learn more about design. I learn new design stuff every day. You should have a weekly newsletter. I recommend Wargames Atlantic's newsletter as a template. You'd feature reminders about what is about to go on sale, what is on sale, links to any actual plays/reviews of LOTFP stuff, maybe some people's LOTFP homebrew content, and most importantly, little incomplete excerpts or crop screenshots of text and art from work-in-progress future releases. That would get people talking about what's coming with little effort on your part. The new YouTube approach might work, but like anything, will need to be shared around the internet and cross over with other YouTubers in order to build a viewership. Like anything else online, you'll have to do most of it and can't rely on fans to do it for you. The LOTFP channel can't just function the same as your insular Facebook community that just caters to current fans and worshippers and doesn't actually help to expand the business. In the past, you have said you feel uncomfortable about asking people to produce LOTFP content for free via game jams, zines, and such. Why though? People are happy to do it for free because they like the brand. They'll especially do it if you give everyone that participates a voucher or free copy of the latest Weird Crusher. It would keep people thinking about the brand and produce more content for the game that people will use to play more LOTFP and buy LOTFP. This stuff would be hyped up for and shared in the newsletter. I only wrote this because I do care. Okay. A lot of stuff there that would be good if you're talking to someone else. Yeah. Let me go back to where I can address the certain points and make sure that I'm not misremembering what I've just read 2 seconds ago. Okay. First thing is the Gateway Mass Appeal product. And it is correct that I won't entertain that, but I think the reasons I won't entertain that are very good. Of course, I would think that, but I will put the reasons out there. When I started LOTFP, I didn't intend to make a game. It was just adventures and supplemental material for other games. The popular old school games of the day. This was before the proper old school D&D things were available on PDF or special editions. But in the 2000s, you had Osric, Swords and Wizardry, and Labyrinth Lord, depending on whether you preferred the first edition, original D&D, or the basic expert form of D&D. And those covered old school D&D type rules with the old school D&D flavor, tone, and as you remember it and as you like it. There were some other things in that space. Castles and Crusades wasn't exactly old school rules, but was going for that exact flavor. You had Basic Fantasy RPG, which was in the same wave as the Osric, etc., except it fiddled with the rules a little bit, but it was still roughly, not even roughly, it was still cross-compatible with the others. And of course you had Hackmaster, which was like a different sort of thing, but built on the same framework. Back in 2000, I think that was first released, but that was based on a comic. But all of the old school rules, and the important thing is that official, published by Wizards of the Coast Dungeons and Dragons was different than it had been. There was a divide between, is this Dungeons and Dragons or not? And the success of 3rd edition made that... It was weird, because if someone said, I like the old stuff better, you know, well, it went two ways, of course, because if you say the old stuff is better, and you reject the new version that has all the players and all the support, it would be so easy to find a game playing current edition. If you say, I like the old stuff better, and taking on that burden of trying to convince other people to play it, that is a rejection of the current version. And the OSR was originally a reaction against 3rd edition, and then picked up a ton of steam when 4th edition Dungeons & Dragons came out, because people... Well, more people thought 4th edition wasn't real D&D and were looking for alternatives, and that's practically ancient history at this point. When I came into the game, I was just producing adventures. I didn't have my own game. And then I produced a box set for my rules because it was very hard to get market penetration with just adventures for systems that, if they were in print at all, it was just like POD, you know. Labyrinth Lord was in shops briefly, but Swords and Wizardry and Osric were like online phenomenon. So with my ambitions and putting out my adventures, they weren't... They were just a subset of a tiny subset, niche of a niche of a niche of a niche. So I thought, okay, in order to get the adventure material forward, I need a game. And that's really what it was. And I made some tweaks and fiddles to it, but the vast majority of it was open game content, and that's why all of the text in the rulebook and the changes I made are also open game content, because saying I'm going to take all the stuff other people have written and compiled, but then keep the stuff I did, you know, that's bullshit. So anyway, getting off the point. But that first box set, the deluxe version, just like flew out the door. It was really expensive and put together by hand, all the box sets. I've never had like a printer, assemble the boxes. It's always hand done, putting stuff in, but stay on point, Jim. Let's not make this one 55 minutes. It's, when I realized that box set was selling through, and it's like, wait a minute, I can really make a go of this. This is the time to step up. And that's when I decided, okay, so the next rule set, which is going to be mass printed and produced, that's going to be the Grindhouse edition, and I'm going to, commission art like the what was the thing I didn't like, the beast ripping out of a swollen woman's vagina. That was the art that was going to be there, and at the same time I started putting that together, I'd made the agreement to reprint Carcosa, which the reputation it had was for being just nasty as shit, and which in some points yes, but overall not really. And that's also when I made the agreement with the porn guy. That was his great claim to fame at that point in the community. And say what you want with all the hindsight, but for 8 years, that produced great work and great sales, and yeah, so I'm not going to say those decisions and who I brought on at that time. I started calling the people I worked with the Rogues Gallery. That was the direction. We're going to make a go of it on a professional, real professional basis with hard covers and getting stuff into stores, and we're going to do that without compromise, without toning down. We weren't going to be just another old school rule set. The point of Lamentations of the Flame Princess isn't to just be another old school D&D derivative. And then, oh my god, why are they screwing it up with the extras and being a doofus? Being a doofus is the entire point of Lamentations of the Flame Princess. And clip that. Put it around. Because, for example, you're talking about the one piece with the sacrifice and the giving birth to the monster. Not ripping out of the woman's vagina. The woman is giving birth. And it's funny because that one is, to me, because of the stylized nature of the art and all the stuff going on, to me that's a bit comical. But then you go, like, right next to it on the same spread is the Vince Locke piece. That, you know, that's the zombie attack. That is so much worse, but you have to look at it a bit to see the really horrible parts. I mean, you have this couple that was, you know, trying to loot this tomb, and the dude, you know, he took the staff that woke all the undead up, and so he's able to see the love of his life, which maybe that's not... Maybe you can't see that in context, but at the very least, his adventuring partner being ripped apart by zombies, including which features a zombie just going right up into her as she's being torn apart. And if you look real closely, dropping down below her is the little fetus. And that's the thing he's seeing just seconds before he's being ripped apart. So the thing that you're saying is the bad thing that can put people off isn't half as bad to the thing it's right next to. And that is in the rulebook for a reason, because here's a game design thing. The rules are not the game. Okay? So even though we're using the same rules skeleton as Labyrinth Lord or Swords and Wizardry or Osric, we're not doing the same thing. There was no intention with Lamentations of the Flame Princess to evoke classic Dungeons and Dragons tone and feel during play. I mean, one of the criticisms early on, when some people, before people realized this is our thing, the criticism was that Lamentations of the Flame Princess adventurers punish players for playing D&D. It's like, if you do the things that work in normal mainstream Dungeons and Dragons, the adventurers will kill the shit out of you. Yeah. Yes. That's intentional in most cases, some not, because the game, whatever the open game content skeleton underneath, is not Dungeons and Dragons. It is not attempting to redo or give you the feeling that you when you played Keep on the Borderlands. It's not trying to give you the feel of any of that. It just shares a rules skeleton. And I've said in the past that if I'd grown up playing Traveler, then Lamentations of the Flame Princess may very well be a space weird horror game instead of like this fantasy magic, underlay over it. So the idea of doing a clean commercial version, first of all, what would that be a gateway product for? I put out a nice, clean version of the rules that people play in a way that people do play like classic fantasy gaming ways with Lamentations of the Flame Princess, and fine, the rules work for that, but that was never the concept. Never the concept. I mean, if that's what you're looking for, see, it's like if you were looking for that classic Dungeons and Dragons feel, I don't understand why you wouldn't be playing Osric or Swords and Wizardry or Labyrinth Lord back in the day and maybe using LOTFP things for spice. These days, it's like old school essentials is like right there. If you're looking for the classic Dungeons and Dragons rules and feel and tone without the grime and the ick, people are doing that. It's being done. I'm just taking the familiar process of play, the familiar rules, and I'm doing something different. I'm presenting something different with them. For example, Free RPG Day. When we first entered, participated in Free RPG Day, what we did was Better Than Any Man, which has a fair claim to being the best thing we ever published, and we gave it away for free. I think it was like a 96-page free adventure, Everyone else is doing 16-page freebies. We give you a 96-page campaign with like full real art and layout and just this massive adventure, but also full of swearing and gore, and I think there's nudity in there too, and put it out to the public for free, and it caused a stir. Of course it did, because people are dumb, and we'll get to that. We'll get to that reacting to what people don't like. That's going to be a core point here. But it's not because we want controversy. I mean, of course, the buzz of what is this? What are they doing? Oh, they're being a doofus. It's like, what the fuck ever. But one of the criticisms of Better Than Any Man was that the adventure was about killing children because there was some wizard that was plastinating child corpses. Tiny bit of this huge adventure, and that's what someone fixated on. So yeah, the next year, the Doom Cave of the Crystal-Headed Children was taking that, you thought that adventure was about killing children. Get a load of this. But that one was a much goofier, light-hearted, randomized dungeon freakout, not as gritty and horror. It was a completely different tone by taking the nasty thing, but it was equally weird and strange, but not as violent and hardcore. And then a couple years later we did Slugs, which the Love Slug was oh boy, yeah. When I commissioned the Love Slug art, I didn't give any. I gave a description of the monster, which was suggestive, but I didn't tell the artist go hard penetration, and I didn't tell him tone it down for public consumption. I'd say, here's the thing, give me what you got, and once the artist, now I don't know what motivations the artist had, if they had anything other than, this will look cool, or I doubt that they were trying to say, we're gonna stick it to the man with this piece, but I got that piece and it's like, this is perfect. Completely inappropriate for any sort of mass popularity, and the stores probably weren't going to be happy, but this was absolute unfiltered creation. What, I'm supposed to say no to that? Fuck it. Fuck that. And the Vaginas Are Magic and then Eldritch Cock, those weren't fighting anybody. those were, attention grabbing, yes, but then you either appreciate that kind of humor or you don't. And if you don't, it's fine if you call us a doofus and then move on. The problem is when you not only think that we're being doofuses, but that something must be done. So if you want to tell us that we should just do our own thing and not worry about anybody else, Fine, but what we're trying to do is not standard D&D with standard D&D stuff, if only we weren't trying to piss anyone off. When I tell you that my influences are horror movies, when I tell you my influences, are death metal and all sorts of things that seems that everything I enjoy had some sort of moral panic in the past. And the whole growing up during the satanic panic thing and seeing people just lie about what Dungeons and Dragons is, and people are trying to suppress this or suppress that, and it goes on today with, the specifics are different, but the pressures and the tactics are the same. And that has an effect. Where you're just saying, oh, look at this crazy thing I came up with. And you piece of shit. Well, yes, you're going to react to that. Yeah, now maybe we shouldn't, but the things we don't react, the things that we produce that aren't reactive are still not going to be nice and fluffy. Because what you're relating other people saying as being a doofus, to me, is just what happens when you're just taking the things that you love or I love or other writers I work with. And this is kind of a self-selecting thing, because if I say, Return of the Living Dead, oh, the young ones, that anarchy, and it's like, oh, that cannibal holocaust really freaked me out. Oh, I went to this film festival and went into a Serbian film, Cold. That was an experience. And I think, that Human Centipede movie, it's not nearly as bad as its reputation, and it's a very well-made film. When that's the attitude you have towards the things you enjoy, and you decide that in your own work you're going to take those elements and move them forward in your own medium, you're going to end up doing a lot of things where people think you're the doofus. And I would very much enjoy if we were just allowed to play at being the doofus without penalty. Like if someone was able to write for us or do art or editing without that meaning they lose job opportunities elsewhere because, there should be a thing. It's like, oh, you did some stuff with the doofus. Oh man, you're really dumpster diving there for work, weren't you? It's like, that's one thing. But I have people that I work with that lose work with other people because they work with me. Fuck them. Just fuck them. What are we supposed to do with that? What am I supposed to do with that? I better make sure that that I push down my own joy and influences in the work so I can please these other fuckhead people. No. And again, when I feel the push, there's, more effectively or less effectively, whatever we're able to muster, it's going to be, we're pushing back, because this doofus zone is ours. It's ours. And people should be able to jump in and out as they wish. If you're doing something that's traditional Dungeons and Dragons with the traditional Dungeons and Dragons tone, go at it. But that shouldn't have to be your life. If you're doing stuff that's got very, very socially conscious and politically motivated, you should be able to jump in and out of that. And then if you want to be in the doofus zone, where me and like trauma and classic death metal and all that sort of nonsense lives, you should be able to jump in and out of that. Now me, I do this because I'm touched in many ways, I guess. So I live in the doofus zone. Other people will live in the socially conscious zone. Other people will live in the classic Dungeons and Dragons zone. Other people will live in, in different zones where that's their zone. Fine. Shouldn't fuck with them, shouldn't fuck with me. Most people, I think, don't live in any zone. And they should be free to cross those borders as they wish, when they wish, without fucking penalty. And when I see that that's not able to happen, and that affects my ability to live in my doofus zone, because it's not that we're just left alone here, where we're getting rocks thrown at us all the time. Sorry. That's the reason why I try not to pay attention to the RPG world at large. That's why I kind of drew in that way. Because, sticking my finger out, sticking my head above the wall, shit gets thrown at you. That happens enough, then you learn the people outside the wall suck. And that's just a generalization. Only some of them suck, but if some of those people are always there to fuck with you when you're just trying to have a good time, then, the next time you stick your head up above the, up the parapet, I'm mixing all the metaphors, you're going to be wearing a helmet. You're going to have your rifle strapped on you saying, okay, you want to fight? Let's fight. And, yeah, and what are you going to do? I mean, some people's tastes are going to be incompatible, and people that think that their taste is, it may be more popular, but when someone says that their creative taste is somehow morally better, and the people that disagree with their sense of taste are morally bad because of it, fuck those people. And you're right. It's not that I will have no consideration for them at all, but that to stand up and say this is what we do, it is going to be by nature combative with the people that would rather this sort of thing not exist. So I fear that being more in touch with the greater community would result in more conflict and more reactive work rather than trying to tune it out and taking the influences from other places than role-playing games. Now, when you're talking about design, it's like, what are you trying to do? What are you trying to do with your material? And to me, the rules of a role-playing game are the least important and least interesting thing about a role-playing game. How do you roll the dice? Is there a new way to roll the dice? And, that classic, 6 ability scores, 20-siders to hit, like, for example, the playtest rules in Eldritch Cock. You work with a rule set for a period of time, and playing it for another bunch of decades before that, you see the flaws, and you're thinking, oh, this could be better, this could be better. That's how every role-playing game's made, because it's not meeting... No game can meet every need. Every game has holes in it because you're doing a very vague abstraction of reality or narrative tropes or whatever the role-playing game is trying to do. It's never going to be perfect at doing what it's trying to do, and if its imperfections land where your interests lay, well then, you've got to create something to address that. And with role-playing, it was... it's silly saying it out loud, but it's the truth. That spirit, that metal spirit, that horror spirit. And that is going to put a hard ceiling on how successful the business can be. Absolutely. I just think what we're banging our head up against right now is not that ceiling. It's this artificial It's this artificial plank that's being pressed down upon us, not the natural height of where this style, of how many people this style can appeal to. So, yeah. So, to sum up, that is, we're not going to do an easily digestible, non-graphic kind of thing to try to introduce people to the rest of the line. It's like the rule book is one of the cheapest books we have. Again, that our model is sort of upside down. The rule book is not the main book as far as I'm concerned. There is no main book. But everyone thinks, oh, the game is the rule book. And they're like, ah. So we have this little table reference in comparison to what other games are. And it doesn't, it has the rules, but you need, yeah, the rules are not the game. So we've got this thing where the rule book is functional and is, as Gwynplaine said, the best old school rule set. Okay, thank you. It's good to know the little tweaks I did didn't fuck everything up. But that's there to be the wedge to open up so all this other stuff can come through. It's like, yeah. I mean, at a convention, when someone comes up and wants just the rule book, I'm thinking, oh, they're not going to get it. They're not, And that's like a trade-off, because if you put all more of the flavor and things in the rule book, okay, once you've read it, it's just fucking in the way when you're trying to play the game and look up rules. So I was looking for functionality over the marketing value of the core rule book. And that core rule book is by far the best seller we've ever had, which is insane to me. But what are you gonna do? There's me. It's me meeting the market halfway. But yeah, the Lamentations of the Flame Princess is what it is. I think it's a fairly big tent. The really nasty, uncomfortable, what the fuck is wrong with these people? Like I said in the last video, you got your, Trauma, your Bloomhouse, and your A24s. And people will just concentrate on the things they don't like and say it represents everything. But we've got lighthearted, we've got really nasty, we've got stuff that would fit into a classical D&D adventuring tone. It's a little weird, so some of those things that bridge the gap between what we really concentrate on and what the other stuff is. So, yeah. And then, another story, and I know I repeat some of these stories, but they're relevant. For example, last Gen Con we were at, we passed out the catalog booklets. And this wasn't even a reaction to anything in gaming. It was just the whole kids on bikes thing. It had been a big deal. Stranger Things. And even, that sort of thing was filtering into the Night Visions Film Festival, where like small indie filmmakers are doing their kids on bikes movies. And I'm just like, fuck off with these kids, It's like, okay, and it was like, the kid got ripped apart and pulled in the sewer. It's fun seeing a kid bleed like that. Okay, that was cool. First episode of Stranger Things I watched and thought, I'm not interested in this shit, and so the popularity of that sort of thing in the greater, pop culture world was annoying. So I made something that reacted to that, reacting to something out in the world. With that Gen Con catalog cover. I didn't think anything of it. I thought it was, cute's maybe not the right word, but it's like a funny little poke at a mainstream trope. If you can't poke fun at a fucking mainstream trope, what the fuck can you possibly do with anything? And everyone got pissed. I mean, I didn't know that someone had actually published a Kids on Bikes role-playing game and was selling it, 2 aisles over. I didn't know. And so the Kids on Pikes art piece, that wasn't aimed at them. It was aimed at fucking Stranger Things and people thinking E.T. should live forever and, that sort of thing. But people were pissed. Somebody called me someone said that I was promoting pedophilia because I had a bunch of kids, all Vlad the Impaler on stakes. And it's like, what the fuck are you people talking about? Shut up. I don't care. Yeah, so So as far as the tone of what Lamentations of the Flame Princess does, and the success that we've had in the past, and the problems we're having now, it's like, okay, what if I did this at a time when people were hungrier for it, and now they're not? What if times have changed? What if I'm not keeping up with the times, and just the amount of people that are interested in this sort of thing has just shrunk generally, and it's not anything specifically related to Lamentations of the Flame Princess particularly. And it's like, oof. Well, that's tough shit, isn't it? But that just means the company would have to close when the bills couldn't be paid because the stuff's just not to the public's taste anymore. Because, as I've said, if I'm going to produce stuff I don't like, this isn't the job to do that in. I'll get a real job with, like, paid vacations and shit like that. Where I can go to work for a set number of hours at some other place, and then once those hours are done, I don't have to fucking think about work instead of, this is my fucking living room, man, and it's not for living. it's for the business. So, yeah, there's not going to be that separation between what I like and what the market wants, because this is a creative studio. And altering the creation just to sell a few more copies, it's not worth it. It's shitty. It's shitty. Okay? So that's, yeah. Let's see, I'm trying to think. Have I missed any points I'll want to come back to later? Of course I have. Well, let's see here. Wait a minute, I've been talking so long. My remote control for the teleprompter stopped working. So let's see. Lash Out, Bohemian Lifestyle, bad press, yeah. Let's see. The gateway product can't exist with the world. Yeah, okay. You're probably exactly right. It can't exist in the world without being part of it, but that's my whole life of not being in sync with the people. I was a weird kid, I was a weird teenager, weird young adult, weird adult, and now a weird middle-aged what the fuck ever, freak out. That's what I've got nothing profound to say. I've never been in step with the world. I don't want to be in step with the world. The world seems absolutely insane to me. And I wonder why nobody sane steps up to say, hey, let's fix some shit. Never mind the people that I deal with leaving the house, but just in general. The world's fucked. The world's always going to be fucked. There are now 8 billion people in the world, all trying to live and to be and have their way, and I don't think the world can ever be not fucked. All I want is my little space to be weird and deal with everyone else's bullshit as little as possible, which is never going to be zero or even nearly zero, but taking on the desires and wants and tastes of, as why I'm not interested, man. Not interested. Not interested. Weekly newsletter. Weekly newsletter. That's one of those things that's probably a good idea, but requires, I don't know, such diligence on a regular basis that's not put towards doing, I don't know, advertising doesn't seem to me like productive work. Not in such a straightforward way. You know, we've got the mailing list for when things come out, and if we have a little bit of time between releases, you know, it's I mean, maybe it's the reality of the world, but the idea that I always have to be up the ass of people who don't necessarily want me to be up their ass just to remind them of all this shit. I mean, the Facebook community is going to be a self-selecting insular group. Yeah, that's what it's for. That's where you go because you like Lamentations of the Flame Princess stuff and you want to talk about stuff related to Lamentations of the Flame Princess. It's like, okay, now the YouTube can't be insular. Well, it's like, it's not interactive though, because there, you know, the people talk with each other. Here, we're getting flung out to who knows where. You know, last weekend, somebody linked one of the other videos, I think, because in one day it did shot up by 1,000 views, which at the level we're still at on this channel is a lot. And it's like, where did that come from? I don't know. I went to the analytics page. It's apparently YouTube was recommending it to people. And it's like, okay, we're already in the algorithm. Oh, and we're, you know, doubled the views on the video anyway. Even if it's in absolute numbers, it's still just about nothing. It's like, you know, that's the plan. I mean, you say collaborate with other YouTubers. It's like, who? Because if you notice what we're doing with making it an entertainment channel with the scripted stuff and not hard sell advertising, which I hate doing unless there's a creative, interesting way to do it on the creator end. Coming up with, you know, it's just it's like, too bad Blockbuster videos aren't around, because you'd be able to go to Blockbuster Video and just look at all the bullshit direct-to-video releases. And just look at how they describe themselves, the back cover copy, the taglines on the front. Everybody's just wanting to grab your attention. Pick me, and it's just garbage. And so when I come up with something that I hate doing, you know, pick me. It's going to be something that's a creative enterprise on its own. If we're going to do advertising, so a newsletter, yeah, see, this is a problem. That newsletter with all the things described, you know, product updates, you know, here's artwork for upcoming stuff as a regular feature. I would consider that spam when I get it. I mean, I buy something online, and suddenly this web store is sending me just all sorts of bullshit. Oh, we got this. Have you seen that? Oh, you like that? Maybe you like this. And it's bullshit. It's bullshit. And I'm of the thinking that if everybody does that, there's probably a reason for it, and it probably works, but it annoys the shit out of me. And of all the things I'm going to do with the people who presumably like Lamentations of the Flame Princess is intentionally annoy the shit out of them with the constant flood of advertisements. You know, that's why the video, the concept for the video channel here isn't hard sell. It isn't. You know, there's going to be some of that. But the closest thing to a hard sell, you know, is like that Asterion video, where we talk about what the product is, but that's part of a gag. And it's like, that's what I'm going to do when we're doing that sort of thing. You know, I don't... It's I don't even write back cover copy really anymore. I farm that out to the writers too, because I mean, it's awful coming up with what this is about, and this is, you know, if you're too flowery with it, it's not informational, and it was just informational. You know, it's, you don't want the goddamn book to sound like a textbook based on the back cover, and I go down, you know, not as often as I used to in the past, but go down to the local gaming store and look at you know, the other publisher stuff, page through it, read the back cover stuff, and it's just like, oh God, this is it's rough trying to figure out the balance of how much in a selling and go for it and aggressive mode like that, and just be like, here's the shit we do. You like the vibe or you don't, but the stuff that we're selling, it's not up to us to convince you that it's good, because of course we think it's good, and even if we didn't, we're gonna fucking lie to you in order to sell it. So I can tell you, like, this is what it's about. And that's what the press should be doing, is saying, is this any good? And that's what they're for. That's what the media is for. Is you know, to say, hey, these people full of shit, or have they done something good? And I don't know. But becoming my own spam factory is... I get the feeling it's one of those distasteful things that should be what I need to do, just like doing monthly accounting. But it's kind of like, it's a distasteful thing that I don't have to do. And even as to my detriment, I think it's more respectful to the people to not just bombard them the way that web shops and publishers and manufacturers that I patronize. You know, I don't want to treat my people the way those entities treat me, as just this, ha, we've hooked him, now let's just always be reeling him in. I don't like that at all. So let's see here. Crossover with other YouTubers. Who? I mean, the YouTubers that I'm aware of, I mean, role-playing channels, it's like, like, what other role-playing channels would I cross over with doing what I do? I mean, I honestly don't watch any role-playing channels, really, that, you know, that aren't talking about my stuff. And when I do see them, it's like, okay, they're paging through a book. They're paging through a book, and it's like, it's not even a real review. I mean, it's not. It's like be like if you're a music reviewer, and it's like, let's sit back and listen to the album. I thought that was, it's like, you're not telling anybody they don't already know. Yeah, you know, it's, yeah. I don't know. The kind of YouTubers that I would want to collaborate with would be the entertainment YouTubers, and the ones that I'm aware of in those genres have millions of subscribers, or up in that level. And it's like, hi, I'm a nobody that do stuff that probably isn't in your demographic, but can we collaborate? And it's like, nobody thought they wanted a traditional fantasy role-playing game that was cutting-edge horror and exploitation and that sort of nonsense. But we did it, and we've gotten to a certain level. We've been higher, we've been lower. We're at a certain level now, so there are people that like it, and maybe people... Nobody was asking for a publisher goofing around doing comedy YouTube skits. Well, we're going to build that too, because that's something that I think will have promotional value once we figure out what works and what doesn't. And we can put creativity into that. And let me tell you, working with somebody that's like in the same room with you and bouncing ideas off of you, it's sort of wish I did have a real office, just a little bit sometimes, doing Lamentations of the Flame Princess stuff. So I have like another writer, in the next desk next to me, and have an artist working over there across the aisle. I should probably work for about a day, being able to bounce ideas off of each other, and before it's like, oh, they're just in the way. But so it's weird because I've bought some new equipment, but that's all been the equivalent of a few pieces of artwork, a few pieces of fancy artwork. So it's not like I'm betting the farm on all this, but it's like, okay, we do this stuff, we put it out there, and it's fun in a way because even if it absolutely flops and fails, there's no added cost to it. It's like I don't have 1,000 copies of the video stacked up in my storage room because, oh my God, nobody's interested. So it's sort of fun and less pressure, and I think that once we get in the groove, people will understand the relationship and how it works as a promotional vehicle. Hopefully. I just like I'm questioning how many people actually understood what we were actually doing in the manifesto skit. So it's like, I don't know. So yeah. So the newsletter thing, yeah, if I had the money, I'd pay someone else to do that. But even so, it would just be like a web post or its own web page or a column on the website or something. It wouldn't be something I'm sending out into people's mailboxes. It wouldn't be something I'm proactively going out and bugging them in their spaces. Because that's, I don't know. It's yeah. I don't know. That's one of the things where, that's one of the areas where, how the fuck did I end up running a business? Yeah, so I think I covered all the points with bonus rambling, so I think I'll leave it there and start getting this thing processed, and I'll tell people to play this late at night so I can help them go to sleep. It's just I got the teleprompter and I can't resist, and it's not like this joke will be good if it's in context. So I'll just go fuck yourself, San Diego. Should have had this in hand before I said that.